Captain Mack Reynolds had exactly 3 qualifications for his current diplomatic assignment. He owned a suit, he could maintain eye contact for more than 5 seconds, and he hadn't punched anyone in at least 6 months. In the desperate scramble to find anyone to represent humanity in their first official meeting with the Zolaxian Empire, these qualities apparently made him the stellar candidate. "Remember, Captain," General Ortiz's voice crackled through his earpiece, "this is a historic moment. Try not to screw it up like the Mars colony negotiations." Mack adjusted his tie, which felt more like a noose with each passing second. That was one time, and the Martian ambassador started it. The metallic doors of the diplomatic chamber hissed open. Mack swallowed hard as 3 Zolaxians glided into the room. They resembled 7-foot-tall praying mantises wrapped in shimmering, color-shifting robes. Their compound eyes reflected the harsh fluorescent lighting of the space station where this historic meeting was taking place. "Greetings, Earth representative," the tallest Zolaxian said, its mandibles clicking in what Mack hoped was a friendly manner. "I am primary diplomat Vex Nor of the Zolaxian Empire. These are my associates, resource allocator Zimgax and planetary surveyor Treblor." Mack forced a smile. "Captain Mack Reynolds, representing Earth and all her colonies. It's an honor to meet you." The Zolaxians exchanged glances, or what Mack assumed were glances, given their multifaceted eyes. "Fascinating," Vex Nor clicked. "Your facial muscles contort in a manner suggesting pleasure, yet your pheromones indicate extreme anxiety. Is this the famous human lying we've studied?" "It's called diplomacy," Mack muttered. "And we generally try not to discuss each other's smells." Vex Nor's antennae twitched. "Efficiency is valued above social constructs in our culture, Captain. Perhaps we should proceed directly to the purpose of this meeting?" "By all means," Mack said, gesturing to the curved negotiation table. As they sat, Mack couldn't help but notice how the Zolaxians seemed to look down at him both literally and figuratively. "The Zolaxian Empire has been observing your species for approximately 73 of your years," Vex Nor began. "We find your development uneven. While your technological progress shows promise, your emotional volatility is most concerning." Mack frowned. "I'm sorry?" "Your species relies heavily on emotional decision-making. It's inefficient, primitive, a vestigial evolutionary trait that more advanced species have outgrown," resource allocator Zimgax explained with what sounded like a condescending click. "The Zolaxian Empire operates solely on logic and efficiency." "Right, well, we humans are rather attached to our emotions," Mack replied, already feeling one particular emotion annoyance bubbling up. "Indeed. Most unfortunate," Vex Nor said. "However, we believe we can assist your species in several ways. For instance, we've analyzed your solar system and identified multiple inefficiencies in your planetary arrangement." Mack's diplomatic smile faltered. "I wasn't aware our planets needed rearranging." "Oh, but they do," planetary surveyor Treblor interjected, pulling out a holographic display. "For instance, your Earth is positioned inefficiently for optimal solar energy collection. And these large bodies of water, what do you call them? Oceans? They're taking up valuable real estate that could be used for more productive purposes." Mack blinked slowly. "You want to get rid of our oceans?" "Not all at once, of course," Vex Nor said reassuringly. "We would begin with a demonstration. Perhaps vaporizing one of your smaller water bodies, the Mediterranean, perhaps as a proof of concept." General Ortiz's voice hissed in Mack's ear. "Are they seriously suggesting terraforming Earth? Tell them to go to hell." Mack cleared his throat. "While we appreciate your interest in improving our planet, I must inform you that Earth is not available for terraforming projects at this time. Or ever." The Zolaxians exchanged more of those unreadable glances. "Captain Reynolds," Vex Nor finally said, "perhaps you misunderstand. This is not a negotiation. The Zolaxian Empire has already classified your solar system as a development zone. The paperwork has been filed. The terraforming fleet is en route. We are merely informing you as a courtesy." "A courtesy," Mack repeated flatly. Indeed, most species appreciate being notified before their planets undergo significant topographical adjustments. It's a minor administrative matter, really. Nothing to become emotional about. Mack took a deep breath, counted to 10, and then counted to 10 again in Spanish just to be sure. "I think," he said with carefully measured words, "that we should take a short recess." Back in the human delegation's quarters, Mack paced like a caged tiger while General Ortiz's hologram watched with growing concern. "They want to vaporize our oceans," Mack said for the 5th time, still unable to process the audacity. "They filed paperwork. Paperwork. As if the Earth is just some vacant lot they can bulldoze." "Captain, I need you to calm down," Ortiz said, though she herself looked like she was contemplating the logistics of declaring war on an interstellar empire. "The President has been briefed. The UN Security Council is in emergency session. But right now you're our only direct line of communication with these bureaucratic bugs." Mack stopped pacing. "What exactly would you like me to tell them?" "Sorry, but we're rather fond of our oceans. Would you mind terribly not vaporizing them?" "Diplomacy, Captain. Buy us time. Make them understand that Earth is not available for renovation without triggering an interstellar incident." "So lie," Mack translated. "Creative truth-telling," Ortiz corrected with a tight smile. When Mack returned to the negotiation room, he found only one Zolaxian waiting, a smaller specimen with iridescent blue markings on its carapace. "Captain Reynolds," the Zolaxian greeted him with what seemed like genuine enthusiasm. "I am Junior Scientific Observer Tar. The primary diplomat has been called to other duties but instructed me to continue our productive dialogue." "Productive isn't exactly the word I'd use," Mack muttered, then composed himself. "Listen, Tar. There seems to be a serious misunderstanding. Earth is not uninhabited. We have over 10 billion people, countless species of plants and animals, and a rich ecosystem that—" "Oh, we're well aware of your population," Tar interrupted cheerfully. "Resource allocator Zolaxians has already calculated the relocation logistics. Only about 30% of your species would need to be temporarily displaced during the initial transformation phase." Mack's eye twitched. "Displaced to where, exactly?" "We've identified Mars as a suitable temporary habitat, once we adjust its atmosphere. A minor inconvenience for a few of your generations, at most." Mack took another deep breath. "Tar, I'm trying very hard to maintain diplomatic relations here, but your empire's casual disregard for our sovereignty is making that difficult." The Zolaxian's head tilted curiously. "I sense elevated cortisol levels in your bloodstream, Captain. Are you experiencing the human emotion known as anger?" "I've been studying human emotional responses as a hobby. Fascinating biological reactions, if terribly inefficient." "Yes, I'm angry," Mack admitted through gritted teeth. "Your people are planning to forcibly relocate billions of humans and destroy our home planet. Anger is an appropriate response." Tar's antennae vibrated with excitement. "Remarkable. The physiological changes are just as the textbooks described. Increased heart rate, dilated pupils, elevated body temperature. May I record this interaction for my research?" Before Mack could answer, the doors slid open and Vexnor returned with the other Zolaxian officials. "Has the human accepted our generous offer?" Vexnor asked Tar. "Not exactly," Tar replied. "He's exhibiting anger responses." Vexnor's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "Ah yes, the famous human temper tantrums. Our anthropological division has documented these. They're quite harmless, merely theatrical displays to establish social dominance within their primitive hierarchies." Mack stood up slowly. "I am not having a temper tantrum. I am officially informing you that Earth rejects your terraforming proposal and demands that you withdraw your fleet immediately." The Zolaxians seemed genuinely confused by this response. "Withdraw? But the paperwork has been filed," Zolaxians said, as if this explained everything. "The fleet has been dispatched. Resources have been allocated. Surely you understand that we cannot simply cancel an approved project because of feelings." "What my colleague means," Vexnor added in what was clearly meant to be a soothing tone, is that the wheels of bureaucracy cannot be reversed. However, we can offer your species preferential treatment in the colonization of the newly transformed Earth. Many of your cultural landmarks could be preserved in designated museum zones. Mack's diplomatic smile had long since abandoned ship. Let me be clear. If your fleet approaches Earth with hostile intent, we will consider it an act of war. The Zolaxians' compound eyes reflected no concern whatsoever. War? Vexnor repeated the word as if it were a quaint, archaic term. Captain Reynolds, our civilization has evolved beyond such primitive concepts. We simply optimize resources across the galaxy. There is no malice in efficiency. Besides, added Treblor, our analysis indicates your military capabilities are approximately 2,300 standard units below the threshold required to pose any meaningful resistance. Mack leaned forward, his voice dangerously quiet. You might be surprised what humans are capable of when someone threatens our home. Ah, another emotional display, Vexnor noted to his colleagues. See how the vocal patterns lower and the facial muscles contract? Classic intimidation posturing. Primitive, but fascinating. Klektar, meanwhile, was watching Mack with what appeared to be genuine concern. Captain, I've studied human history extensively. Your species does indeed react unpredictably when threatened. Nonsense, Zimgax dismissed. Our predictive models are infallible. The humans will protest, posture, and ultimately adapt to the new reality. It is the logical course of action. As the meeting adjourned, Mack couldn't shake the feeling that the Zolaxians' greatest mistake wasn't their plan to terraform Earth, it was their absolute certainty that humans would simply accept it. Exactly 3 standard Earth days after the first diplomatic meeting, the Zolaxian demonstration fleet arrived in orbit. Mack was summoned to an emergency video conference where he found himself face-to-face with Vexnor's giant holographic head. Captain Reynolds, the Zolaxian diplomat, greeted him. I am pleased to inform you that our demonstration project has been accelerated. The Imperial Efficiency Board has approved a small-scale proof of concept that will showcase our terraforming capabilities. Alarms immediately blared in Mack's mind. What kind of proof of concept are we talking about? Nothing dramatic, Vexnor assured him with a wave of his spindly limb. We've selected a minor population center for conversion into a more efficient topographical arrangement. According to our records, the settlement is called Milwaukee. Mack nearly choked. Milwaukee? You're planning to do what to Milwaukee exactly? Convert it into a more efficient arrangement, Vexnor repeated patiently, as if explaining a simple concept to a child. The process will reconfigure the existing urban infrastructure into raw materials for our planetary optimization project. The energy signature will be visible across your continent as a demonstration of our technological superiority and good faith. Good faith? Mack sputtered. Vaporizing an American city of over 1 million people is your idea of good faith? Vexnor's antennae twitched in confusion. The population will be given 17 of your minutes to evacuate. That's nearly twice the recommended time according to our efficiency guidelines, but before Mack could respond, alarms began blaring throughout the station. A junior officer burst into the communication room. Sir, the Zolaxians have deployed some kind of energy weapon over the Midwestern United States. Mack turned back to the view screen, his face ashen. Vexnor, stop this immediately. I'm afraid that's impossible, Captain. The demonstration has already begun. But do observe carefully, our conversion beam operates with 99.7% energy efficiency. The view screen automatically switched to satellite imagery of North America. Where Milwaukee had stood just moments before, there was now a perfectly circular crater, still glowing with unearthly blue energy. The room fell silent save for the continuing alarms. Mack stared at the screen, his mind unable to process the casual obliteration of an entire city. As you can see, Vexnor continued, apparently oblivious to the horror he had just inflicted. The conversion process is remarkably clean. The energy released will be harnessed for Phase 2 of our project, which will focus on your polar regions. Something snapped inside Captain Mack Reynolds at that moment, something primal and dangerous that diplomatic training couldn't contain. When he finally spoke, his voice was unnervingly calm. "Vex Nor, I want you to listen very carefully. What you've just done isn't a demonstration. It's not a proof of concept. It's not an efficiency optimization. What you've just done is declare war on humanity." The Zolaxians' mandibles clicked in what might have been confusion. "War? Captain, I believe you're overreacting. It was merely Milwaukee." "Merely Milwaukee," Mack repeated, a strange smile spreading across his face. What followed would later be known across the galaxy as the Milwaukee speech. "Let me tell you something about humans, Vex Nor. Throughout our history, we've fought wars over land, over resources, over ideologies. We've fought wars over insults to our honor and perceived slights. Hell, we once fought a 10-year war because someone stole a wooden horse." Mack leaned closer to the camera. "But do you know when humans are at their most dangerous? It's not when we're greedy. It's not when we're hateful. It's when we're backed into a corner. It's when someone threatens our home. You just vaporized an entire city of innocent people who had never done anything to you. People with families, with dreams, with favorite songs and unfinished novels on their nightstands. And you did it as a demonstration. In about 10 minutes. Every human in the solar system is going to know what you've done. And then you're going to learn something that's not in your efficiency calculations or your predictive models. You're going to learn what happens when humanity decides something needs to be stopped at all costs." Vex Nor's compound eyes reflected no emotion, but his antennae had stopped moving. "Captain Reynolds, your speech is most dramatic, but the Zolaxian Empire has faced primitive resistance before. Your species cannot hope to match our technological superiority." "We don't need to match it," Mack replied quietly. "We just need to survive it. And surviving impossible odds? That's practically humanity's defining trait." The transmission ended, and Mack turned to find General Ortiz standing in the doorway, her face grim. "The President has activated DEFCON 1, she said. "Every military force on Earth is mobilizing." "It won't be enough," Mack said. "Not against their technology." Ortiz nodded. "That's why the Security Council has authorized Operation Proportional Response." "What's that?" "Something the Zolaxians didn't account for in their efficiency calculations," Ortiz replied. "Human creativity, when we're really pissed off." 3 weeks after what was now being called the Milwaukee incident, Commander Dex Harper stood in the hangar bay of the retrofitted mining vessel The Last Straw, watching as engineers made final adjustments to what had once been asteroid drilling equipment and was now. Well, nobody was entirely sure what it was now, but the eggheads from NASA, Roscosmos, and the European Space Agency all agreed it would probably do something spectacularly destructive to Zolaxian technology. Probably was good enough these days. "Remind me again why I'm in charge of this floating suicide mission?" Harper asked, running a hand through his perpetually disheveled red hair. Captain Reynolds, now serving as Earth's military liaison to the hastily assembled space fleet, grinned without humor. "Because you're the only person who's ever successfully hacked an alien navigation system." "That was a Centaurian tourist shuttle, and I was drunk," Harper protested. "And I only redirected it to crash into my ex's swimming pool." "Exactly the kind of creative problem-solving we need right now," Mack replied, clapping him on the shoulder. "Besides, every qualified military commander is busy with the main fleet. You were literally the bottom of the barrel." "Your confidence is overwhelming," Harper muttered. Around them, the hangar buzzed with frantic activity. Earth's response to the Zolaxian threat had been chaotic, improvised, and thoroughly human. While the military powers coordinated a conventional defense fleet, a parallel unconventional response had been hastily cobbled together. The Last Straw was the flagship of this unconventional fleet, a mining vessel retrofit that looked like it had been designed by caffeinated engineers with too many ideas and not enough sleep, which was exactly what had happened. "Status report?" Mack asked as they walked through the hangar. Harper consulted his tablet. The good news is we've successfully integrated the quantum disruption field that Dr. Patel theorized might interfere with Zolaxian navigation systems. And the bad news? We have absolutely no idea if it works, and testing it might accidentally turn Jupiter into a pretzel. Mack nodded as if this were a perfectly reasonable assessment. What about the other modifications? Well, Harper began, leading them toward a massive contraption bolted to what had once been the ship's primary ore crusher. We've repurposed the mining lasers into what the engineering team is calling the Milwaukee Special. It's essentially a focused energy beam that should disrupt the molecular cohesion of Zolaxian hull materials. Should? Mack raised an eyebrow. Look, we're converting mining equipment into superweapons based on technology we barely understand. Should is the best I can offer. They continued their tour of the ship, observing as crews installed improvised weapons systems with names like Earth's Complaint Department and Return to Sender. Each was more improbable than the last effusion of human ingenuity, desperation, and the universal human desire to make things explode. What about the communication interceptors? Mack asked. Any luck cracking their transmissions? Harper's expression brightened. Actually, yes. Dr. Rodriguez discovered that Zolaxian communication frequencies shift according to prime number sequences. We can't understand what they're saying yet, but we can track their fleet movements. And? Pry. And they're gathering for what appears to be a full-scale assault on Earth. The Milwaukee demonstration was just the beginning. Mack's jaw tightened. Time frame? 3 days, maybe 4. Then we launch in 2, Mack decided. The conventional fleet will engage their main force while your team. Suicide Squad, Harper interjected. While your specialized task force, Mack continued, ignoring him, slips past their defenses and heads straight for the Zolaxian homeworld. Harper stopped walking. I'm sorry, what? The homeworld? As in the heavily defended central planet of an advanced alien civilization that could turn us into cosmic dust bunnies with a sneeze? Exactly, Mack said with a grim smile. They expect us to defend. They don't expect us to attack. It's not efficient. Harper stared at him. That's your plan? Exploit the fact that they think we're logical? Humans rarely do what's expected when we're angry, Mack replied. And right now humanity is very, very angry. As if to illustrate his point, a nearby engineer accidentally triggered what appeared to be a modified potato cannon, sending a projectile through 3 bulkheads and narrowly missing a fuel line. Sorry, the engineer called out, still calibrating the gravitic payload. Harper sighed deeply. We're all going to die. Probably, Mack agreed. But we'll do it in a way that confuses the hell out of the Zolaxians. And if there's one thing I've learned about humans, it's that we're at our most dangerous when we're cornered, creative, and have nothing left to lose. Plus, he added with a wink, I have an ace up my sleeve. Please tell me it's a planet-destroying superweapon, Harper groaned. Even better, Mack replied. It's an inside man. Or, well, inside insect. The Zolaxian High Command vessel Optimal Efficiency lived up to its name in every respect except one. It had never accounted for the sheer, maddening unpredictability of desperate humans with improvised weaponry. Supreme Commander Vix Pahn watched with growing concern as the tactical display showed Earth's conventional fleet behaving in patterns that defied all strategic logic. They're dividing their forces, he clicked to his subordinates. Inefficient. Our superior numbers will overwhelm each group individually. Sir, a junior tactician interrupted. We're detecting anomalous energy signatures from a separate group of vessels. They don't match any known human military configurations. Vix Pahn's antennae twitched in irritation. Civilian ships? Are they attempting to evacuate? Negative, sir. They appear to be mining vessels, but they've been heavily modified with unknown technology. Before the Supreme Commander could respond, the tactical display erupted with alerts. The human conventional fleet had suddenly accelerated toward the Zolaxian formation. while the strange mining vessels veered away on a trajectory that made no tactical sense whatsoever. "Intercept the conventional fleet," Vix Payne ordered. "Ignore the mining vessels. They pose no threat." Little did he know that aboard the Last Straw, Commander Dex Harper was grinning like a maniac as the Zolaxian fleet ignored their approach. They took the bait, he announced to his crew of engineers, scientists, and what could generously be described as volunteers with questionable backgrounds. "Conventional fleet reports heavy casualties," his communications officer reported grimly. "But they've successfully drawn the main Zolaxian force away from the hyperspace junction." Harper nodded. "Begin charging the Milwaukee Special. And someone please tell Dr. Vasquez that if her quantum disruption field turns us all inside out, I'm going to be very disappointed in the afterlife." As the Last Straw and its ragtag fleet of modified vessels slipped past the outer defenses of the Zolaxian system, a priority alert flashed across Harper's console, a transmission on an encrypted frequency that Captain Reynolds had given him before departure. "This is Commander Harper of Earth Vessel Last Straw," he answered cautiously. The screen flickered to life, revealing the iridescent blue-marked carapace of a familiar Zolaxian. "Commander Harper. I am Junior Scientific Observer Click Tar. Captain Reynolds suggested I contact you upon your arrival in our system." Harper blinked in surprise. "You're Mack's inside man? I mean, inside Zolaxian?" "I prefer the term research associate with conflicting loyalties," Click Tar replied. "I've been studying human emotional responses for years. Your species' reaction to the Milwaukee incident confirms my research hypothesis that underestimating human emotional capacity is a severe tactical error." "So you're helping us because we proved your thesis correct?" "Essentially, yes. Scientific integrity demands I acknowledge correct predictions, even when they conflict with my government's actions." Click Tar's mandibles clicked in what might have been embarrassment. "Also, I've developed what humans might call a conscience regarding the unnecessary destruction of sapient life." "How inconvenient for you," Harper said dryly. "What can you tell us about the Zolaxian defenses?" The screen changed to display a detailed schematic of the Zolaxian home system. The primary defense grid operates on a ternary frequency modulation. Your Milwaukee special weapon will be ineffective unless calibrated to these specific resonance patterns. Harper gestured frantically to his chief engineer, who began furiously inputting the new parameters. "Additionally," Click Tar continued, "the High Council chambers are located here. A section of the central planet illuminated. They are currently in emergency session discussing the unexpected human resistance." "Perfect," Harper muttered. "Any suggestions on how we might get their attention?" "The High Council values efficiency above all else," Click Tar explained. "Disrupting their operations would cause maximum psychological impact." Harper grinned. "Disrupting operations is what humans do best." As they approached the Zolaxian homeworld, alarms finally began blaring throughout the alien defense network. The Last Straw had been detected. "They've locked weapons on us," the tactical officer reported. "Evasive maneuvers," Harper ordered, "and charge up the Earth's complaint department. Let's show them what happens when you mess with Milwaukee." The Last Straw jerked violently as it dodged the first volley of Zolaxian energy weapons. Harper was thrown against his restraints, cursing colorfully as the ship barrel rolled to avoid another blast. Milwaukee Specialist charged and calibrated to Click Tar's specifications. The chief engineer shouted over the alarms. "Fire," Harper commanded. The makeshift weapon, essentially a mining laser modified with technology borrowed from half a dozen Earth nations and a few questionable black market sources, discharged with a sound like 1,000 thunderstorms. A brilliant beam of energy lanced toward the Zolaxian defense grid's central node. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a flash visible from space, the entire grid went dark. "Holy shit," Harper breathed. "It actually worked." "Of course it worked," the chief engineer replied, looking mildly offended. "We're humans. We excel at breaking things." On the tactical display, the other modified mining vessels began targeting secondary defense systems, creating chaos throughout the Zolaxian capital. "Sir, The communications officer called out. We're receiving a priority transmission from the Zolaxian High Council. They're requesting to speak with Earth's representative. Harper straightened his decidedly non-regulation jacket and ran a hand through his disheveled hair. Well then, put me through. It's time for some interstellar diplomacy, Harper style. The Zolaxian High Council chamber was a marvel of geometric precision, a perfect dodecahedron, where every angle, every surface, every light source had been calculated for optimal efficiency. It was, Commander Dex Harper thought as he was escorted inside by chittering guards, the exact opposite of the chaotic, jury-rigged interior of the last straw. The contrast wasn't lost on the Zolaxians either, who regarded the human delegation with compound eyes that somehow managed to convey both disdain and unease. Captain Mack Reynolds, having arrived via emergency shuttle after the conventional fleet's diversionary action, stood beside Harper. His diplomatic uniform was singed in several places, and a nasty cut above his eyebrow had been hastily sealed with medical adhesive. You look terrible, Harper muttered as they approached the council podium. You should see the other guy, Mack replied with a grim smile. Turns out my diplomatic skills extend to physical negotiation when necessary. Before them, the 7 members of the Zolaxian High Council perched on elevated platforms. At the center sat Supreme Efficiency Director Zex Tour, whose ornate carapace gleamed with what were presumably indicators of rank and status. Representatives of Earth, Zex Tour's voice reverberated through the chamber. Your unauthorized assault on our homeworld defies all logical analysis. Explain yourselves. Mack stepped forward. I believe we've already explained ourselves quite thoroughly. You destroyed one of our cities as a demonstration. We responded in kind. A disproportionate response, countered another council member. Milwaukee was a small settlement of minimal strategic value. You have disabled our entire planetary defense grid. Disproportionate? Harper couldn't contain himself. You vaporized 1 million people. And you threatened to reshape our entire planet, Mack added, his voice dangerously calm. Consider our actions a counterproposal. The council members clicked their mandibles rapidly in what the humans had come to recognize as agitation. Your species is irrational, Zex Tour declared. No logical species would risk their entire civilization in retaliation for a single city. That's where you made your fundamental error, Mack replied. You assessed our technological capabilities but failed to understand our psychology. Humans don't respond to threats with logic. We respond with emotion, specifically with rage. As if on cue, the chamber doors opened and Tar entered, flanked by more guards. The junior scientific observer approached the podium and offered what appeared to be a formal bow to the council. Esteemed council. Tar began. I have studied human emotional responses extensively. When we're all anxious. My research confirms that Captain Reynolds' assessment is correct. Humans exhibit what I've termed disproportionate protective response when their communities are threatened. This response overrides logical self-preservation and often leads to actions that, while strategically unsound, are remarkably effective due to their unpredictability. Traitor, hissed one of the council members. You've aided these primitives. I have aided scientific truth, Tar replied calmly. And the data suggests that continuing this conflict will result in mutual destruction and outcome that can hardly be classified as efficient. Supreme Efficiency Director Zex Tour's antennae quivered with what might have been rage, or perhaps the Zolaxian equivalent of a bureaucrat realizing his paperwork was about to increase exponentially. What are your demands, humans? Mack stepped forward. First, immediate withdrawal of all Zolaxian forces from Earth space. Second, formal recognition of Earth and all human colonies as sovereign territory, off limits to any terraforming or optimization projects. Third, reparations for Milwaukee, to be negotiated by a joint commission. Preposterous. A council member chittered. The administrative burden alone would. Fourth, Mack continued, raising his voice slightly, and this is non-negotiable, You will share your scientific knowledge, specifically your medical technology, with Earth. This last demand caused confused clicking throughout the chamber. You would demand our technological secrets? Zex-Tuer asked incredulously. Not all of them, Mack clarified. Just the medical advancements. You see, while your empire has been optimizing planets, we've been trying to optimize human lives, to reduce suffering. Your medical technology could save billions of lives across our world. A strange silence fell over the chamber. The concept of technology being used primarily to reduce suffering rather than increase efficiency seemed to genuinely confuse the Zolaxians. And if we refuse these terms? Zex-Tuer finally asked. Commander Harper stepped forward, holding up what appeared to be an ordinary tablet. This device is linked to something we call the Earth's last word, a series of modified mining charges currently attached to your planet's tectonic stabilizers. One touch, and your perfectly efficient world becomes a textbook example of geological chaos. It was a bluff, of course. The last straw had managed to place a few disruptive devices on the Zolaxian defense grid, but nothing that could truly threaten the planet. But after witnessing what desperate humans had already accomplished with modified mining equipment, the Zolaxians couldn't be certain. And uncertainty was something their efficiency-obsessed minds struggled to process. After what seemed like an eternity of mandible clicking and antenna twitching, Zex-Tuer spoke. We will consider your terms. A formal response will be provided within one standard rotation. You have 1 hour, Mack replied firmly. After that, we become inefficient. When the humans and Klektar were escorted to a waiting area outside the council chamber, Harper finally let out the breath he'd been holding. That was one hell of a bluff, Captain. Mack smiled thinly. Who says I was bluffing? The fact that our Earth's last word is actually a retrofitted seismic scanner with the display modified to show a countdown? Harper suggested. Details. Mack waved a hand dismissively. The best bluffs contain elements of truth. We may not be able to destabilize their entire planet, but those charges could certainly ruin their perfect geometric city layouts. Klektar's mandibles clicked softly in what the humans had come to recognize as amusement. The council is in disarray. Your species' capacity for calculated irrationality is fascinating. We call it poker, Mack replied with a wry smile. Sometimes the winning hand is the one your opponent thinks you have. Harper glanced at his wrist display. 43 minutes left. Think they'll crack? They already have, Mack said confidently. They're just calculating how to surrender while saving face. As if to confirm his assessment, the door to their waiting area slid open. A Zolaxian administrative aide entered, its carapace markings indicating mid-level bureaucratic status. The Council requests clarification on your medical technology exchange proposal, the aide announced formally. Specifically, what oversight mechanisms would be implemented to ensure efficient knowledge transfer? Harper and Mack exchanged knowing glances. This was bureaucratic speak for we're accepting your terms, but need to appear as though we're negotiating details. We propose a joint scientific commission, Mack replied smoothly. Equal representation, shared research facilities, dual publication of findings. The aide's antennae twitched in what might have been surprise. Your species would share findings rather than claim exclusive credit? Science works better when it's collaborative, Harper explained, thus efficiency through cooperation. The aide departed with this information, leaving the humans and Klektar alone again. You have successfully exploited their psychological weaknesses, Klektar observed. But I must warn you, the Zolaxian memory is long. Some will view this as humiliation rather than negotiation. That's why we need you, Mack said seriously. Someone who understands both sides. A translator not just of language, but of culture. Klektar's compound eyes seemed to narrow slightly. You planned for this outcome? Let's just say we hoped for it, Harper answered. You were the first Zolaxian to show genuine curiosity about humans as more than test subjects. That indicated potential for real communication. 27 minutes later, they were summoned back to the council chamber. The tension was palpable. but of a different quality, now less hostile, more calculating. Zextuar's voice carried across the chamber with formal precision. The Zolaxian High Council has evaluated your terms and finds them acceptable, with modifications. Mack raised an eyebrow but remained silent. First, Zextuar continued, we will withdraw all forces from Earth space and recognize your territorial sovereignty. Second, reparations for Milwaukee will be provided in the form of technology transfer rather than material resources. Third, Milwaukee's survivors need more than technology, Harper interrupted. They need homes, infrastructure. Zextuar's mandibles clicked once in what might have been irritation. Our construction capabilities far exceed yours. We will rebuild the city to superior specifications. Mack and Harper exchanged glances. It wasn't the response they'd expected, but perhaps it made sense. The Zolaxians' obsession with efficiency would make rebuilding a city a straightforward engineering exercise. Acceptable, Mack nodded. Continue. Third, the medical technology exchange will proceed under joint oversight. And fourth, a condition of our own scientific observer Click-Tar will serve as primary liaison between our species. All future communications will pass through proper diplomatic channels. Mack fought to keep his expression neutral. They'd gotten everything they wanted, and the Zolaxians had found a way to save face by adding a reasonable condition of their own. We accept your terms, he replied formally. On behalf of Earth, I look forward to a more efficient relationship between our peoples. The formal documentation was prepared with remarkable speed. Zolaxian bureaucratic efficiency apparently extended to surrender agreements as well. As the humans prepared to return to their ship, Click-Tar approached them privately. You realize that we could not comprehend your willingness to risk mutual destruction, the Zolaxian scientist said quietly. You exploited our psychological blind spot. Just as you've been studying ours, Mack pointed out. Click-Tar's antennae twitched in acknowledgement. A mutual education, then. I suspect both our species have much to learn. As they departed the Zolaxian homeworld, Harper looked back at the geometrically perfect cities visible from orbit. You think this peace will hold? He asked. He asked. Mack gazed thoughtfully at the planet below. Peace isn't an endpoint, it's a process. But we've given them something they value highly: predictability. War is chaotic and inefficient. Peace, properly managed, is the opposite. Harper nodded slowly. And what about us? What did we get besides our terms? Something we've been searching for since we first looked up at the stars, Mack replied. Proof that we're not alone, and that even species with fundamentally different ways of thinking can find common ground. He tapped a command into the ship's console, and the retrofitted mining vessel began its journey back to Earth. That, Mack concluded with a small smile, is the most efficient outcome of all.